Good day, grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's accounting lesson. My name is Mrs. Bella Machetla, and this lesson is brought to you by the Northern Cape Department of Education in collaboration with Pagama Research and Development. Now, on today's lesson, we are still doing the revision. We're still on the reconciliation topic. However, we are looking at the creditors reconciliation today. All right. Now, at the end of this lesson, you must be able to do the following. You must be able to understand the concepts relative to our creditors reconciliation. And then you must be able to calculate the relative amounts to creditors control account and the creditors list. Then you must be able to calculate the relative amount to the creditors ledger and the creditors statement. So this is from your exam guideline of 2021 on page 10. All right. So your exam tips for this exam are as follows, right? So you must use your time effectively, as I've mentioned. Try to not spend too much time on a particular question, right? Try to make sure that you are working as fast as possible. You can't sit and think, grade 12s. You should be thinking, okay, I can't do this question right now. Let me move on to another one. All right. Make sure you are working on every question as quick as possible, but obviously by giving the most clear answers, and also making sure that your handwriting is also clear, because wow, we still need to mark the handwriting. Bear that in mind. All right. Then you must start with the questions that you master. So obviously, when you study, you're studying question by question, right? So you've mastered question 1, for example. Therefore, you will know that when you get to the exam, question 1 is the first question that you are going to attempt. And if you get to a point while you're busy with question 1 and you see that there's a question that's giving you a challenge, you stop attempting that question for now, you put it on hold, you move on to the next question so that you are able to attain as much marks as possible within the set period exam time. All right, then you must use the time allocation as a guide. Now, if you check your exam paper on the second page, there is a table indicating how much time you need to spend on each question. Use that as a guide. As you are busy with your reading time, you are looking at the time allocation, you are looking at the question paper and the answer sheet, and you are checking what is required from you, and then you are able to see, okay, from this time until this time, I need to complete this question. From this time until this particular time, I should be completing the next question, and so forth. And remember, you can start with whichever question you feel comfortable with first, all right? So there's no restriction as long as you're doing a question, a whole question at a time. It's not a problem. Then you must know your formulas and your formats. Like I've mentioned previously, you cannot go to a war without your weapons. Even David knew that if he was going to fight Goliath, he needed to bring some sort of weapon, right? He needed to bring his slingshot so that he can win the fight or survive the situation. So please, make sure that you've got your own tools, which is your formulas and your formats, so that you are able to attain the desired outcome that we want, which is 100% for accounting, of course. And then you need to attempt all the questions. Try by all means. Very often, when you have completed most of the things that you know, you leave empty spaces and you sleep for the time, waiting for the time to lapse. Please, grade 12s, don't do that. Attempt every question. Each question must have an answer, because there's a likelihood that you actually do know how to attempt the question. You just don't have the confidence, but you will get at least 2 or 3 marks. Attempt all the questions, grade 12s. Right. Now, creditors reconciliation basic concept still. It is an internal control process where the creditors control account is compared to the creditors list, or we can say that our creditors ledger is compared to our creditors statement from the supplier. And then we are able to identify differences, and we can investigate and correct the differences. So what happens is, we are comparing our creditors control with our creditors list, and then we are comparing our creditors ledger with the statement that we are receiving from our suppliers or our creditor. Now, the purpose of this reconciliation is to identify the differences, the errors, and omissions. And we must also verify the accuracy of the transactions that have been recorded. The moment there is a discrepancy between the two things that we are comparing, it means that our transactions were not accurately recorded. There were some errors, and then we need to now take into consideration. Okay, now, same concept with the debtors list and the debtors control. We are dealing with the creditors control and the creditors list. Now, please take note, when we are dealing with creditors, we are dealing with liabilities, okay? Now, I'm starting with the accounting cycle again. Whenever there is a transaction, there will be a source document. That is step number 2. After that, we record in our journals, which is going to be our cash receipts, cash payments, creditors journal, creditors allowance journal, and so forth. Once we've done recording in our journals, we are going to then record the totals of our journals in our general ledger, and then we will record the transactions from our journals in our creditors ledger. Okay, so individual creditors, are we fine? Then once we've recorded all the transactions, we total all the creditors, and they will give us the balance of 8,500. Now, this balance of the creditors list, which is all the creditors, must be the same as the balance of our creditors control. Then we will know that all the information was accurately recorded. Remember, why must these transactions be the same, or these totals be the same? It's because of the following. We are using the same information, right? So if we are using the same information to populate two different aspects, we are going to get to the same conclusion. Are we following? So that is why they must correspond, because we are taking a summary, which is the creditors control. We are comparing it with the individual accounts, which will amount to the same as the summary. All right, so that is the story between the creditors list and the creditors control. And let us remember that when we are dealing with the creditors control and the creditors list, we are dealing with our books internally. We are the ones recording these transactions. These are our books, okay? So we are checking that we have accurately transferred all the transactions correctly in the business, right? So that is us. This is us, and this is us, and we are checking our internal books if we've done it correctly. All right. Then, if they are not the same, then definitely it means that there's an error that might have happened. Now, let us look at the creditors list and the creditors statement. Now, this is the situation, grade 12s. As we are buying from our individual creditors, we are also recording, right? We are recording, we went to buy from this particular creditor. Therefore, the debt will increase. Then when we return goods, we also record as well that the debt is decreasing. And then when we make a payment, then we also go and write down or record that we've made a payment and our debt should be this specific amount. And then the same thing that we are doing, our creditor is also recording, right? Now, at the end of the month, the creditor is going to send us what they've recorded, and then we compare what they have recorded with what we have recorded to ensure that we are on the same page with our creditors, that our books are saying that we are owing the creditor the same amount that the creditor is telling us we are owing. If they are not the same, grade 12s, then we have to reconcile. They must, or they should have been errors that have arisen in those specific transactions. All right. Now, why will these amounts not correspond. What are the reasons? The first of the reasons could be the statement date differs from the closing date in the creditor's ledger. What does this mean? The creditor will send us a statement on the 26th of the month, right? We record transactions until the 30th of the month. So if transactions happen after the 26th of the month, then definitely they will not be on our creditor statement because they happen after they issued us the statement. But they will appear in our books because we've been recording until the 30th. All right. Then another reason why these transactions will not be the same, or our creditors list and our creditor statement will not be the same, is that there might have been a discount that we deducted on the creditor's ledger account, but the creditor did not accept. Sometimes the creditor is actually offering a discount if a specific payment is made on that particular date, but then we do not meet the criteria. But then when we record the transaction, we record it as if we have met the criteria. Then when the creditor statement comes, we realize that, but no, we actually did not receive that discount. Therefore, we need to cancel the discount in our books. Okay. Then another reason why the books may differ is the posting and the recording of errors in either of the creditor's ledger and the statement. Maybe our bookkeeper has made an error while they were recording. Instead of writing 200, they wrote 2000. Or same story with the creditor's statement. The creditor might have actually written 2,500 instead of 250. So those are the possible errors that could have happened between the two businesses. And then another reason why there was an addition or subtraction errors in either of the creditor's ledger or statement. So instead of reducing the debt when we paid the money, the creditor might have written it as an increase. So then that is the possible error that might have occurred either with the creditor or the business. So the big thing is that errors could happen either on the creditor's ledger or the list or on the creditor statement, one of the two. But either way, we need to reconcile to make sure that we are on the same page. All right, grade 12s. Then the transactions in the creditors reconciliation are as follows. When the business bought goods on credit, then it's a CJ transaction, and obviously the debt is going to increase. Now, whenever we are dealing with debtors reconciliation and the creditors reconciliation, the most important question is, what implication does it have on the debt? Is the debt going to increase in this transaction, or is the debt going to decrease in this transaction? So the business paid an account. So when we pay, what is happening to our debt? Is the debt increasing or decreasing? The debt will decrease, and obviously it's a CPJ transaction and the source document is an EFT. Received a discount from a creditor, then a discount means that we no longer have to pay that particular amount, so therefore the debt is then going to become less. So that's why it's a negative, and it will be with the CPJ transaction. All right, so whenever we are paying, normally it's if you pay before the within 30 days or on the same month, then you will be eligible for a discount of a particular amount, and then the transaction does not happen on the same day. All right, so but nonetheless, this is the typical transaction where you record the amount that you paid with the discount that you would have received. Okay, then discount was not approved by the creditor, then that's when we cancel the discount, and then that will increase our debt because we had said we received a discount for 200 rand, for example. That means we subtracted the 200 rand that we owed the creditor. But now that we have not qualified for the discount, we need to add back the 2000. Okay, so 200. Goods are returned to the creditor. That will reduce our debt because we took back the goods. We don't have their goods anymore. And then it's a CHA transaction because it's returns, and then interest charged on an overdue account. So if we do not pay on time and so forth, then the creditor then will obviously charge us interest, and that will increase our debt. And this is a GJ transaction because it's a non-cash transaction. And the source document for the GJ is a journal voucher. Right. Now, the possible errors that might happen in the creditor's reconciliation, or that you might actually be tested on, are as follows. The transaction is not recorded at all, and if it's not recorded, both our books and the statement is affected. Okay. Then an error of commission, meaning you have done the correct transaction, however, on the wrong account. So that can be an error done by the business or by the creditor. Instead of writing a transaction in a particular debtor, we wrote it on a different creditor. All right. So the error of principal, you have done the transaction on the correct side, but the wrong type of account. Right. Then error of originality, that is when you have the incorrect figure to the correct amount. Okay. So that is the error over there. And then the reversals is when you've recorded on the wrong side. Okay, so you are supposed to subtract, but you actually added. Then that's a double entry question. You add back the correct amount so that you cancel it, and then you add it so that it actually appears the way it's supposed to appear. All right. Now, how do you approach creditors reconciliation? It seems very difficult, but it's actually quite easy. First things first, you identify where was the error made, meaning who made the error. Was it the business or was it the supplier? Then you know whose books you need to actually correct. That's the first step. The second step is that you need to indicate the effect on those particular transactions. So the first thing, as you start doing this question, just simply draw this table, and the more you do it on the table, the easier it is, and it helps you think in a particular way that at a certain time you won't need to do the table at all. Okay, so the first part of the table is how was it supposed to be recorded, meaning in that transaction, what was supposed to happen, what was the right thing to do, right? That is what you're going to write over there. Then the second column says, how was it recorded? What did the business do, right? Then, what must you do to change the value in number 2, meaning the wrong amount, so that it is the same as the value in column number 1? So, example, a credit invoice of 12,000. This is a credit invoice. We know an invoice will increase the debt, okay? Was recorded as 21,600 in the creditor's ledger account. So the first step, we identify which person or where was the error made. It was done in the ledger. So the ledger will be our books. Okay, so we made the error. That's where we are fixing. Okay, then what was supposed to happen in the ledger? What was supposed to happen? It's an invoice of 12,000. We were supposed to say we add 12,000. Sorry about that. We add 12,600. Instead of doing that, what did we do? What was the wrong thing that we did? We recorded 21,600, a positive 21,600, as you can see. Right. Now, the next question is, what do you need to do to get to the amount at column 1? So, you will then find the difference. You will say 21,600, right? And then subtract 12,600. You will find the difference, okay? 21,600 subtract 12,600, and it will give you 9,000. That is the difference. Now, the question that I want to ask you is this amount understated or overstated? This amount is overstated, right? So then what do? I need to subtract 9,000. Now then, to verify your answer, you take the incorrect amount, you type it into your calculator. You say positive 21,600, all right? There it is on your calculator. And then you subtract 9,000. And then you press equals to. Does it give you the amount in column 1? Yes. And therefore, this is what you are going to reflect in your creditors ledger. That's what you need to do. So whenever you are doing this type of question, you first write what was supposed to be done, 2, what they did, and then you take your calculator and figure out what you need to do in order for that amount in column 2 to become the amount in column 1. And then that is what you are going to reflect on the face of your creditors ledger or your statement. All right, now that is the end of our examination tips, and let us quickly do an activity. Right, now it says there, the information relates to SCB traders for August 2023. Taking into account the errors and omissions, calculate the correct balance for the creditors control account and the creditors list. So this is a comparison within the company. Do you see? We are checking our books. We are ensuring that what we have recorded is 100%. And then they say you must indicate whether positive or a negative if there is a decrease. All right. Then the information says the following. We've got a table provided for us, and then you have to complete the errors and omissions, number 1 and number 2. I will give you 3 minutes to quickly complete this question. See you in 3 minutes. Welcome back, grade 12s. Let's quickly look at this question. So they've given us our creditors control account balance, and they've given us our creditors ledger. We can definitely see that they are not the same. So there are some errors that have taken place, and we need to reconcile these errors. Okay, so the list of creditors are given to us. Puto wholesalers, Planet suppliers, Mish dealers, and aerial suppliers. Then we are reading our errors and omission. The total of the creditors allowance journal was understated. Now the question that I have to ask you is, where are we reflecting this? Remember this one, this is the question that is internal. Are we reflecting this in our creditors control, or are we reflecting this in our creditors list? Is the error on the list, or is it on the creditors control, or is it both of them that are affected? Now we are going to indicate this in our control account, because when there is a problem with the total, then it's only affecting the control account. Okay, so it means that we understated that amount. So when we understate the creditors allowances, what impact does the creditors allowance have on our debt? The creditors allowance deals with returns. So returns means that the debt must become less. So our debt is becoming less with 3,600. Okay, that is what was understated. We subtracted too little in the previous calculation. So there it is, the debtors control, and we subtracted too little. Right, then number 2 says the payment of 14,250 made to Puto sailors was in error, posted on of 15,240 to the creditors ledger account. Posting to the general ledger was correct. Now, which of the two is affected? They specifically indicated that the error is in the creditors ledger. No problem. Now, what did they do? They overstated the amount, right? And they overstated a payment. Now, payment means that they reduced the amount, and then they reduced too much, okay, because it's overstated as 15,200. Then what do we need to do to correct the error? We need to then add back the amount that they subtracted too much. So we find the difference between the two, and then the difference between the two is 990, and it's a positive because they had subtracted too much. Okay, so that is how we approach the question. Now moving on to activity 2. This is a continuation of the activity that we are busy marking right now. So it says there, we check our information there. We know that obviously they gave us our creditors control balance. They gave us our creditors list. We know that they are not corresponding. They are not the same. So therefore there were errors that have taken place, or there was omissions, right? Now, information 3 says, the invoice received from Planet Suppliers, 9,540, was recorded in the creditors journal, CJ, and was posted in error to the account of Puto wholesalers in the creditors ledger. Now, this transaction is a no entry. Why? Because we've already recorded the 9,540 in our creditors control. No problem. The only issue is that in our creditors list, right, we did not put the total at the correct creditor. However, the total of the creditors list will still remain the same. There is a creditor that is that we are owing 9,540, and unfortunately, the books that we are busy with, which is the creditors list and the creditors control, do not allow us to maneuver between the two creditors. We are just dealing with totals. So the debt is there. So therefore, we can't add or subtract anything because it is supposed to be there in the first place. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to complete these two transactions, transaction number 4 and number 5, and then we will quickly look at how you approached it. So I'll give you 3 minutes to quickly go through it. See you in 3. Welcome back, grade 12s. Now let's quickly look at these transactions. So it says goods returned to Mish dealers, 7,500, and recorded in the CAJ, was posted on their account in the creditors ledger as an invoice. So this is a creditor's allowance. This is a return. And return is a negative. And what did they do? They added, because invoice means that we are increasing the debt. So what do we need to do? Do you see this is the wrong side entry? So it means that whatever that we need to do, we need to do it twice. All right. So they said negative. They said positive 7,500. So I'm going to first remove that 7,500, we get 0. And then I remove the 7,500 of the returns that they were supposed to do in the first place. So it's a double entry, grade 12. All right. So there it is. And where are we doing this double entry? We are doing it in the ledger account. So this does not affect our creditors control. It's affecting our list. Okay. So there's the information there. 2 marks for that. All right. And this is the one that I told you about, that there was no entry. If there is no entry, please indicate the 0 zeros there. It's actually worth a mark. Okay. Then the transaction number 5 says the following. It says SEB traders recorded a purchase of 13,280 from aerial suppliers in the CJ after deducting a trade discount of 20%. So this amount is representing 80%, okay? Because it's after the trade discount was recorded or deducted. However, aerial suppliers informed them that the trade discount agreed on was 10%. So that means that when we cancel the debt, we canceled 10% too much. So that means that we need to add back because we're still owing the 10%, right? Only 10% was a discount, therefore the other 10% we had to pay, right? So we need to then correct. So when we were doing this transaction, we subtracted the whole amount. Now we need to show that no, we did not settle the whole amount. We are still owing them the 10%. So then I will calculate my 10% by saying 13,280 multiplied by 10% from the 80%. That's what's given to me. And that will give me 1660. And this entry was not recorded. So therefore, both the creditors control and the creditors list are affected. Now quickly check. There it is. Do you see that? And then what do you do at the end? You are going to add everything together. Remember to always add this amount, okay? Add everything together. It will give you your 174,000. You add it according to the sign. So you will say 175,940, subtract 3600, add 1660, and that will give you your 174,000. Same applies on this side as well. You are going to add and subtract accordingly, and it will give you your total. And if you look at this, then you have done your creditors reconciliation successfully. All right, grade 12. Let us quickly talk about your homework, which is obviously similar to what we've been doing so far. Your homework says use the table to indicate the differences between that were discovered between the creditor's ledger and the creditor's statement received from quarter suppliers. So you are going to apply the same principles that we've been doing so that you are able to complete this homework. There is a worksheet that's available. Please request it from your teacher so that you are able to complete the homework. Now, in the next lesson, we will be talking about VAT concepts that are relative to VAT basically, and then we'll be talking about the VAT control account and also highlighting or calculating the amount payable to SARS or the amount that SARS owes the business. So then we'll be able to calculate that. So it can either be a liability or it can either be an asset. So those are the aspects that we are going to be talking about in our next lesson. Now with that said, grade 12, let us say that I will see you when you see me. All right, thanks. Bye.